Well, good evening and welcome to the good ship Trilleen, where I am just getting round to the point of the day where I can actually do something about looking after my own body and soul and make some food. So I've got some onions and some carrots and various other things, and I think they're just going to get stewed up into some sort of stewy mess, which anyone who's encountered my cooking will be entirely familiar with. Meanwhile, in the rest of this video, I'll just take you through the last couple of weeks where we've launched Trilleen, and also where we've managed to take her on some little passages, test some stuff out, and various bits where stuff's been getting fixed. In fact, the general pattern of my day at the moment is to wake up, realise that I'm awake and I'm on a boat, start fixing stuff, continue until such time as I run out of things to fix, and then go to bed. But we are getting there slowly. The latest thing that this evening's brought is actually a nice lee cloth so that I won't fall out of my bunk, which is always a good thing. Trilleen's refit was making progress in the yard, but at some point all refits need to come to an end, or at least a pause. For sailing Trilleen, that point arrived when we had non-slip on the decks, a nearly complete electrical system, functioning heads, or toilet in sea speak, and a working engine. Getting to that point was one of the harder things I've done recently, and I'm immensely grateful to Colin Bouquillon for his help, advice and engineering nous throughout the project. He claims he's retired, but if you can get his assistance with a boat project, you won't regret it. Finally, the day came when, after 2 postponements due to my project planning going very awry, Trilleen got lifted into her slings and the earthbound props fell away. After the usual splash of anti-fouling onto all the points that other anti-fouling can't reach, because those points are obscured by props or chocks, Trilleen was very carefully rolled back through the yard and to the dock. The team at Medina Yard, also known as the GBR Yard, have been kind, helpful and generally fantastic throughout the whole refit. Boatyards are never a pleasure if you want to be out sailing, but Medina is as unstuffy and friendly as any yard I've ever seen, and the team have made the refit a lot more bearable. As Trilleen kissed the water for the first time in about 3 years, there was the usual dive down to the companionway to check that the through hulls were indeed watertight and there was no water anywhere there ought not to be. Then, very carefully, she was warped out onto the jetty, sitting nicely above her marks and generally looking like she'd never been an earthbound lump of GRP and aluminium. Trilleen is the name of a boat, built in the 1930s by my maternal family in the Isle of Man. The name means Pleiades and explains the constellation in the logo. I was very grateful to Reverend Vanessa Lawrence for trekking over from the mainland to name and bless Trilleen.
May the blessing of Almighty God, His Father and Son and Holy Spirit come upon Trilleen, on Ian and on all who sail in her. Amen.
I haven't filmed much of the day-to-day aggravations and fixings that have been going on, but one which was very typical was the morning that I woke up and went to pump the bilge, and the handle broke off, or more precisely the socket for the handle broke off. So I suppose it's very much better for this to happen alongside in Cowes than for it to happen in the middle of the night in Lyme Bay. But I suppose, of course, this is very much better to happen alongside in Cowes than in the middle of the night in Lyme Bay. However, it threw my schedule out completely because obviously it had to be repaired. So there I was, stripping the pump down, thinking none of these spares will be in stock, because just at the moment nothing that you need is in stock, especially specialist bits of chandlery. So it was a great relief to find that in fact the great chandlery in Cowes Jolliffe did in fact have the relevant part, and I was able to reassemble the pump after only several hours of quietly swearing at it. Now that Trilleen is afloat, the first order of business has been to get various things done that weren't possible at Medina Yard, and to start the sailing workup. At the moment, I'm very much following a crawl, walk, run pattern to ensure that I don't overdo it. In between each little workup passage, there's a whole lot of fettling going on to fix problems that I find, or to fix livability issues in the cabin. The first sail I got out of Trilleen was a quick trip to Hamble to get the gas services commissioned. It was a great relief, and indeed a joy, to find that she handled beautifully under sail and that I can move round her safely. Her sheer and immensely solid tow rails makes for an easy trip to the bow when I need to leave the tight, deep cockpit. She clearly yearns to be set up and let run in the wider ocean, but even in the restricted waters of the Solent, her handling is very acceptable. Trilleen is sailing here with a reef mainsail and a full staysail, a sail combination that I think will be fairly standard for her on passage, as she's very comfortable with it and the helm is well balanced. I don't know what the wind speed was. I guess it was in the 15 to 18 knot range. Anyway, after I got back from this quick trip to Hamble, the madness of Cowes Week descended, and I became fully occupied with sailing with the Andrew Castle Foundation. Indeed, I was so consumed with racing that I took no video and almost no pictures. If you want to catch up, I'd encourage you to have a look at the Andrew Castle Foundation's social media feeds. Suffice it to say that we took 3rd and 4th place in a sonar class fleet of 16 boats, which was very acceptable. The next trip that I was able to take was to Lymington. The overt purpose was to go and get Trilleen surveyed for some heating work, which will be done later in the year and will mean that I can stay warm over the winter and also magically have hot water. Coming back from Lymington, there are 2 clear options. The first is to go east up the Solent the way that I came down from Cowes. It's a short trip and it's the routine way to go. However, there is another method, and that is to go west out through the Needles and then round the back of the island. And that was what I chose. I came out from Lymington with full main and staysail, and it proved to be a little bit much. So here you are, you can see me reefing the boat down with much speeded up time. And the other thing that as I was saying, you find all these problems with the boat as you go along, and it turns out that the reefing pennants for the first reef are really not very adequate, so that's now gone onto the list to be fixed, which is why she's got such an ugly looking bag in the sail there, even as I try and tuck it in desperately. But it wasn't too windy, and therefore the bag in the sail wasn't going to do itself any great harm. Here we are beating out into the Western Solent with Hurst Castle just visible on the right hand side of the picture. At the moment, Trilleen is beating on her own, so she's sailing close hauled or nearly close hauled without any intervention on the tiller, and there's no self-steering involved. In theory, all long keel vessels should be able to do this, but not all of them actually can, so it's great to find Trilleen will actually sit and hold her balance like this. And then we were out round the back of the Needles into the channel proper, and it was here that it was really clear that even on a nice downwind broad reach going to a run, the boat was just so comfortable. It was really lovely to feel her underneath me and to understand that she's going to be a good sea boat. Needles are really, really pretty. If you've never had the chance to get out around them, I'd commend it to you. As the day went on, as predicted, the wind began to fall light, and by the time darkness had fallen, we were crawling along at about 1.5 knots in past Bembridge and up towards Ryde. And in fact, when we got to the corner of the island at Ryde, the buoy name's North East Sturbridge for those who are interested, I decided that I'd sort of had enough of this and it was time to motor in for the last 5 miles. But it was a lovely sail,